In 2020, I made this video. Why Wario needs more games. What I realized back then in my pursuit to understand how one of my favorite games came to be was that in spite of the Wario Land series' abandonment in recent years, his platforming games have stood the test of time because of their wacky and experimental nature. Wario was never going to be the center of attention quite like his adversary, but that was fine because he was just as comfortable stealing the spotlight to act as a testing ground for some of Nintendo's seemingly rejected platforming ideas. The Wario Land games thus cultivated a niche but passionate audience. They rarely enter the conversation when discussing the all-time Nintendo greats that have continued to garner mass appeal, but for fans like me, it's hard not to shut up about them when they do get brought up. What I couldn't possibly realize was that in just a few short years, my wish for more Wario platformers would be granted, not by Nintendo, but by a small group of passionate, independent developers who likely grew up idolizing these games just as much as I did. Enter Pizza Tower, a self-described Wario-like platformer that twists Wario Land's conventions into something even more jaw-droppingly outrageous, yet fresh and tightly designed. Just like those classic games, people can't seem to shut up about Pizza Tower. And while I've had some time to really sit on it since completion, I've decided that I can't either. Pizza Tower is the first in what could eventually be a long line of experimental titles that recapture the Wario spirit while achieving so much more. A step just as bold as Wario first took, this time 2 decades in the making. To be honest, upon discovery, I wasn't exactly sold on Pizza Tower. My biggest hurdle was the zany 90s cartoon style, as well as the rough MS Paint evoking pixel art, which is likely the first thing people will pass judgment on. Wario is a similarly crude character, but as the series progressed, the art style and environments he traversed became increasingly more beautiful as hardware advanced. Hell, his last platforming adventure was developed by Goodfeel, a developer that would later become known for their gorgeously creative art styles. Pizza Tower has a conversely rough form. At a glance, one might even mistake the art for being lazily thrown together when compared to the high-fidelity pixel art games that are continually being released year after year. But that really couldn't be further from the truth. Still images definitely don't do Pizza Tower justice because the game really comes to life through its character animation. And there's no better example to demonstrate this than the main character himself, Peppino Spaghetti. Peppino's control and abilities may be highly influenced by Wario, but as a character, I can't help but feel he has much more in common with Luigi, specifically within the context of the first Luigi's Mansion game. Peppino is a similarly reluctant hero. His base mood is that of extreme discomfort and anxiety, and even when he appears at his most formidable, it's clear the newfound confidence is fueled by his jittery unease. I also really love how this is reflected in his altered forms, as poor Peppino is clearly in a torturous state when they are forced upon him. His eyes pop out of their sockets as he's reluctantly dragged along by a carelessly gleeful Mort the Chicken who has no business flinging the duo across the countless bottomless pits in their shared stage. And the sheer terror on Peppino's face as he's tossed into a barrel or propelled by a rocket is a delight to see. The environments are similarly striking, but due to the relatively flat color palette, they were also my biggest initial hang-up with Pizza Tower's art style. It's the one aspect of the visuals I didn't grow particularly fond of because rather than allowing the levels to feel like real places in this distorted pizzascape, it feels like I'm looking at a cross-section where a shift in perspective might reveal an uncanny 3D hallway, kinda like Super Paper Mario. It's an admittedly nitpicky criticism, and one I've since come around on because every design choice makes so much more sense with the controller in your hands. And that fully extends to the art style, a manic distortion of Wario's dreamlike design that was already slightly off kilter. It's important to note that while Pizza Tower is an incredibly thoughtful love letter to the Wario Land series, it shares the most characteristics with Wario Land 4, an entry that is perhaps best known for polishing and streamlining many of the more experimental design choices the preceding games settled upon. And this is true especially in regards to structure. Wario Land 4 challenged players to defeat a boss in each of the 4 main passages of the Golden Pyramid before reaching the final boss. These could be completed in any order, the only catch being Wario must complete the 4 levels preceding each boss in sequence by escaping each area with a key ghost to access the next level, as well as completing a set of 4 jewels to unlock the boss door. While the key ghost could typically be found close to the level's end or exit, each of the 4 jewels were broken into 4 additional pieces scattered throughout each level. That's a lot to collect, and no fully completed jewel set means no access to the boss. Pizza Tower's approach is quite similar, with just a few key differences. There's 4 main floors of the tower, sandwiched by a few additional tutorial and final sequence levels, and each floor is appropriately themed. Each level tasks Peppino with freeing up to 5 pizza toppings scattered throughout before giving the monolithic Pillar John a bash, activating the same escape sequence that was core to Wario Land 4's identity. The main difference is that instead of allowing players to access each of the 4 main worlds right off the bat, each world boss gates off progression to the next floor. That doesn't mean Pizza Tower doesn't reach the same level of freedom Wario Land 4 facilitated. It's just a different type of freedom. Each pizza topping Peppino escapes with contributes to his overall cash pool, which is required to summon bosses. If you're adept at scrounging up every last topping in the early levels, you'll often accrue enough cash to reach the world boss without even setting foot in some levels. I think this is a great choice for most players for a couple of reasons. In Wario Land 4, if a key collectible was missed during the initial playthrough of a level, the player had a few options. They could return to the level after completing the rest in its set passage in order to challenge the boss, or they could abandon the world entirely to explore another passage. Sometimes the player might have to instantly replay the previous level, which could prove to be frustrating. In my time playing Pizza Tower, barring my straight-up failures, I never once had to replay a level, even when I failed to obtain every topping. Instead, attempting every level at least once, even when I didn't have to, allowed me to obtain enough cash to reach the final boss without delay. Freedom in level sequence is preserved, while difficulty is streamlined and frustration is mitigated. It's a creative solution to a problem that could have easily been overlooked, which I think is a testament to the developers' painstaking attention to detail in regards to further refining an already heavily polished formula. The intent is to not only recapture the essence of Wario platforming, but to continue iterating upon it while ensuring Pizza Tower feels distinct, and the level structure is truly just the tip of the iceberg. So here's the thing about Pizza Tower. The tangy sauce beneath the cheese, if you will. The gameplay is, through and through, a wonderful homage to the Wario Land series. Peppino is an absolute bruiser, bashing, tossing, and charging his way through any enemy in his path. While Peppino is more motivated by his fight or flight instincts than pure greed, he is similarly on a quest to amass a wealth of treasures and cash on his way to maintain the status quo at his pizza shop. The classic Wario Land reaction abilities, while not exactly having the same mechanical trade-off like they did in the Wario Land games, are a staple mechanic that ensures no level in Pizza Tower feels remotely similar to the last. There's even a slew of bosses that similarly put your mastery of Peppino's moves to the test in a more uncommon situation. It all adds up to create a wonderfully fun, spiritual successor to Wario Land. But what I think is even more notable is the fact that Pizza Tower, at just about every turn, does a better job instilling an impeccable sense of speed and momentum in the player than any 2D Sonic game I've ever played. Wario was uniquely fast in Wario Land 4, a bit of a departure from the bumbling bruiser he established himself as in the previous Wario Land games that were known for their slower pace and puzzle platforming. His charge ability is the notable addition here, working in service to the previously noted escape sequences. Wario Land 4 isn't always a fast-paced game, however. The level design does a much better job playing into the player's sense of intrigue. You might find yourself off the beaten path in search of more treasure, and the enemies and unconventional power downs are purposefully designed to slow Wario down for further light puzzle solving. Pizza Tower, conversely, asks the question, what if our game was always fast? Not just quickly paced, but blisteringly fast in a way that, frankly, blows Wario Land 4 out of the water. The focal point of Peppino's abilities is similarly the Mach Dash. It allows him to move at already breakneck speeds that become even faster the longer you're able to maintain an uninterrupted dash, blasting through enemies and obstacles just like Wario. Quite crucially, for Pizza Tower, however, this ability allows Peppino to climb walls and can be chained into various actions that all serve the purpose of maintaining momentum. Peppino can dive through the air before curling into a ball to blast through knee-high obstacles. And there's even a freaking vertical shine spark that can be cancelled into Wario's iconic shoulder bash. The base movement in this game is simply incredible, and where Wario Land 4's level design left the player constantly bumping into momentum-halting walls when approached too quickly, Pizza Tower's level design ensures a near constant state of flow as long as you've become skilled enough to achieve it. Many levels have stretches of horizontal space that allow Peppino to reach spectacular speeds. But these spaces also tend to have just the right kind of obstacles to keep them interactive. There's tight openings to roll through, rails to grind, and small ledges to hop over. It's exhilarating and challenging, but at the same time, forgiving because the wall climbing ability allows Peppino to keep moving forward even when the player's timing is slightly off. Compositionally, Pizza Tower just utilizes screen space incredibly well, which makes it all the more difficult to ever go back to a classic 2D Sonic game for that same sense of mind-bending momentum. Peppino is actually pretty small on screen, which honestly just fits the character in its own right, but also ensures that there's always enough space to see what's ahead. Even the art style, which I had trouble coming to understand, works in service to the play. The flat color palette ensures everything that needs to be seen contrasts nicely with the backgrounds and level geometry, from the enemies to the objects to Peppino himself. Everything is just working in harmony, all to provide players with one of the most accessible speed gaming experiences out there. Pizza Tower can absolutely be played in a similar fashion to Wario Land 4 by meticulously scouring levels for secrets while laying the smackdown on some baddies for extra points. Here's the thing though. Yes, there is another thing. Pizza Tower doesn't just beg to be replayed. By the end of your first playthrough, it injects its manic energy into your veins and demands to be mastered. The tutorial does a great job getting the player accustomed to Peppino's unconventional moveset, but it doesn't exactly let on what kind of game Pizza Tower is. It's really a score attack game that is all about squeezing every last ounce of juice from each meticulously designed level, all in the name of mastery. Without much knowledge of some of the more hidden mechanics, I was able to achieve no less than an A or B rank on every stage, usually an A. That is, except for the bosses, which I certainly still have some more work to do on. I didn't really get it though, until I discovered how to get my first S rank. The X Factor is the combo meter in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. I couldn't think of a more Wario-like addition to truly take this game to the next level. Every defeated enemy adds to the combo, which results in the additional points needed to reach an S rank. But these need to be dismantled within a fairly small window of time. It's just forgiving enough, however, because taking damage won't outright break your combo. It's merely a delay, and grabbing any item that contributes to the total score will also reset the combo timer. It's pretty difficult to achieve an S rank, as doing so requires the player to maintain fairly high combos while obtaining almost every source of points in a stage. But once you achieve one, it feels euphoric. Everything drives the player towards an S rank completion. The enemy design and behaviors are punishing if approached carelessly. But if rushed down with reckless abandonment, they can be easily dispatched because only at certain speeds will they drop their weapons in sheer terror, requiring the player to teeter along a knife's edge of caution and unhinged speed. That is low-key one of the most genius design choices in the entire game, and it doesn't stop there. There's also a taunt ability that prompts enemies to instantly fire their projectiles, which can also be parried with another cast. But when Peppino has a combo counter of at least 10, he can also activate a super taunt, which simply wipes all of the enemies on screen. It's practical, risky, and just so much fun to use. But that's also not it. If you can believe it, it gets even crazier. There's a fucking P rank! Over the course of my playthrough, I noticed that each and every level has an additional room existing for what appeared to be no reason. I wondered why. Could there have been a secret I missed or what? I don't know. Then, I returned to these rooms after triggering the escape sequence, and it was finally revealed to me. These crazy motherfuckers added a second lap! Not only does the second lap need to be completed with often fractions of a second to spare, in order to reach the coveted P rank, the player must gather all the points, all the secrets, and maintain an uninterrupted combo throughout the entire stage. P ranks demand perfection. They demand an unhinged level of confidence to even think about tackling. And you'll have to pull every trick in the book to even have a chance. But it's so much fun! Inject it into my fucking veins! After over an hour of non-stop attempts, locked in, gamer stance activated, sweat pouring from my orifices, was I able to achieve my first P rank. On the very first stage! I've only just scratched the surface because I've been afraid that this game would take over my life. Don't be afraid. Join the revolution. Take the pill. The pizza pill. This is why you can't stop hearing about Pizza Tower. Tour de Pizza has a masterful understanding of what their audience wants, and through its boundless design choices, does exactly what Nintendo wouldn't dare to do. Pizza Tower is not just the first step, it is an enormous leap for Wario-like platformers, and yet is just the beginning. With Anton Blast to follow this year, and who knows how many more passion projects that have been brewing since Wario's heyday, sparked by the success of Pizza fucking Tower. What are you still doing here? There's not enough time. Take the pill. Play Pizza Tower! Huh. That was weird. Anyways, just want to say thanks for watching the video, as well as thank you to my patrons for funding the production of videos like these. The biggest thank you goes to my Patreon producers for this month, Julian Messmer, Questing Refuge, and Blacktooth Bob. Yarr. Welcome aboard, Captain Blacktooth. Sorry, I thought it sounded like a pirate name. My bad. If you like this video, consider subscribing and checking out my other videos. More indie and Nintendo coverage in the future. Thanks again, and I'll see you all again in the next video.